Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to have you here. I've been looking at the comments coming through, people checking in on YouTube about wherever it's coming from, and it always blows my mind, basically, to have people coming from around the world to join me here. We've got Baltimore, we've got Bath, we've got Brisbane, we've got British Columbia, we've got other cities starting with B, and that's only the cities starting with B. So welcome. I know we've got a lot of people signed up for this. Well over 2,000 people have signed up for it. So I appreciate that you have not only signed up for it, but you're actually here with me or you're watching the recording. And that's kind of you and generous of you to give me an hour of your time. And we're going to spend that time figuring out your next big thing. I'm going to give you some of the tactics and strategies that I've used to try and help myself figure out, basically what the heck I'm doing with my life and where I want to spend my effort and my time and my resource and my life, and how we've helped other people do that as well. But look, I want to actually start with an apology, at least for some of you, because I know that we made a snafu on the emails that we were sending out, and some of you registered and then got a whole bunch of emails going, have you registered yet? You should register. And that's very annoying when that happens. And, you can feel like you're being besieged by MBS.works and by me. So if you experience that, I apologize. I'm sorry about that. We just got it wrong at our end. We didn't flick a switch that we should have flicked and screwed up. So thank you for being kind and nice about that and letting us go. Let's start off with the check-in, and we're really going to blow the chat up. So please keep answering comments in there. I'm watching it. There's so many coming through, I can't see them all. But I've got a question for you. It's a question I start at every single webinar. So I'm sure some of you have seen me present before. And so you know this question. It's this: how focused do you plan to be with me over the next 50 minutes, over the next 48 minutes? Actually, I'm going to stay on till the top of the hour, and I'm going to use the final 10 minutes to open up and answer questions. So, but I promise you we're going to get through all the content within the first 50 minutes. So a scale of 1 to 7, how focused do you plan to be? 1 means not focused at all. Quite frankly, you don't know why you're there. You've got a cocktail in hand, even if it's 10 o'clock in the morning. There's chaos happening all around you, and you're just using this as pleasant background noise while you get on with a whole bunch of other stuff. 7 is actually bringing some real intention and real focus to this. And look, I don't mind what number you give yourself. You could be Amanda coming in at 10. That's why Amanda doesn't do finances at MBS.works. It could be Kevin coming at 7.5. It could be Karen coming in at 5, or Brad coming in at 5. I don't mind what number you choose for yourself. Marianne's coming in at an 8. That's great. I just want you to pick a number and whatever feels good and real and realistic for you. And then I want you to make an adjustment to your environment so that you give yourself the better chance to hit that number. Because we're all a little bit Zoom fatigued, and we're a bit tired of watching people like me on screens. So we know how easy it is to get distracted. So what will help you not get distracted? Is it shutting down browsers? Is it moving your phone out of reach, which is what I need to do when I'm on a webinar? Is it shutting your door, putting on headphones, whatever it is for you? The choice is yours. I'm just glad you're here. Do have a pen and paper handy, though, because I've got some things I want to share, and you might actually want to take some notes, because I've got a little model that I want to teach you that I think will be helpful. All right. You're here because this is called How to Figure Out Your Next Big Thing. So let me ask you a question. Why is that so hard? I mean, why haven't you already figured this out? In the chat, if you wouldn't mind, tell me, what are you finding hard about figuring out your next big thing? What's getting in the way of that? And we'll start seeing Tota saying not seeing the chat. I think it's coming through on the YouTube, Toto, but we'll sort that out. 10 p.m. and exhausted for Henri. Well, thank you for being here, Henri. But what's getting in the way? Why is it so hard to figure out what your next big thing is? I've got a few things around that. One is I can be overwhelmed by the possibilities. I think Peter's saying that as well. Like it's too hard to choose. Brian, not knowing my highest and best use. Too many choices for Michael. Colleen's like a belief in self. It's like, am I up for this? Who am I? Who am I to even think about having a next big thing? And I'm loving what Jefferson's saying. Jefferson's like, big things are just big. Yeah, right. They're thrilling. They're important. They're daunting. So there is this resistance. As soon as we say choosing your next big thing, finding your next big thing. It's an invitation to claim ambition for yourself and for the world. And there's not a single person here who isn't busy, got plenty of things to do in their life already. But I saw something pop up on screen saying, look, partly it's just the resistance. The great stuff always creates resistance. So all of this is true. Sometimes, and I think we've really summed it up nicely in the comments, some of it is self-doubt. Who am I to be doing this? Some of it is overwhelmed with what's already happening. There's just too much in my life going on right now. Why would I add a big thing into it? And sometimes it's like we get stuck on just having too many possibilities. Right? You know, where do I even start? What if I get it wrong? So I wrote the book, How to Begin, because I really wanted people to live a life of meaning and to make the world a little bit better. It's a bit selfish. Like I know I want people to be more fully expressed, and I want our world, whether that's at the kind of huge global level or whether it's just by neighborhood or family by family, I want that to be better. And so I'm really interested in going, how do I help people like you figure out your next big thing? So I love this quote from Richard Feynman, one of the most brilliant physicists ever existing. Nobody ever figures out what life is all about, and it doesn't matter. And I've got an asterisk. He didn't have an asterisk. I put an asterisk up there because you know what? It doesn't matter, and it does matter. I don't think you ever do. This is my personal stance. So I don't think you ever figure out what the meaning of life is about. And I don't think that does matter. I do think what matters is you go, how do I live this life as best I can? How do I make the most of who I am? How do I continue to grow and unlock my greatness? How do I contribute to the world? And that's why I think it's worth figuring out what your next big thing is. I'm going to give you the answer right away. This is a spoiler. So if you've only got 8 minutes to be on this webinar with me, I'm going to tell you what I think the secret to figuring out your next big thing is right now. It's about taking your best guess. I use this language myself all the time. How do I take my best guess as to what my next big thing is? And I put an asterisk next to there. Justin, our producer, is flashing up asterisk alert on the screen. I didn't know he was going to do that, so that's pretty funny. I'm like, how do you figure out, no, it's a guess. You're never going to know what the right thing actually is. How do you figure out what your best guess is? And how do you have the courage to actually take it? And we're going to touch on all of those things over the next 40 minutes or so. So where do we start? Well, I think, you know, we've had a lot of people say I'm overwhelmed by the number of things I could do. And I think that's true. But for some of us, and I probably felt this way mostly, it's like I'm not totally sure. I'm not overwhelmed. I mean, I can see a forest, but I can't really differentiate the trees. So what I've got better at over the years is looking for clues as to what I actually might want to do. Because I, and maybe you have this as well, I have the curse of competence, which is like I'm pretty good at a whole bunch of stuff now. I'm just old enough and I'm okay enough that there's a bunch of things I could do. And at this stage, and I think this is true for anybody kind of entering that midlife stage, you know, in your 40s and 50s into your 60s, where you're like, it's no longer about what I can do, it's what I'm choosing to do. How do I make my best guess as to what my next big thing might be? So here's where I think your two sources of data might be, or not data, clues. I think there are inner feelings, and I think there are outer nudges. So let me take you through this little model step by step to kind of go, all right, so what do you mean, inner feelings and outer nudges? And for those of you who are wanting to map this out, this is the map that I'm using. You know, I was a management consultant once, not a super successful management consultant, but anyway, you get taught to draw a 2-box model anytime you want. So this is plus and minus, and this is I and O, inner and outer. And we're going to just fill out what these 4 quadrants are in just a second. So if you're a note-taking person, you might want to jot that down and have a go at this. And we're going to start with inner feelings. Now, this is hard for me to write about or talk about because I'm not that good at knowing what my inner feelings are. I mean, honestly, I work at it, but it is a lifetime's work for me to better integrate my head, and my ideas, and my thinking, and my heart, and my feelings, and my sort of somatic wisdom. I'm going to be working on that for the rest of my life. One day, maybe another webinar, I'll tell you about how I ended up at a sex therapist in an attempt to make this work and how awkward that was for everybody involved. But now's not the time for that. So what's the first inner feeling that you might want to connect to? Well, I think the first inner feeling, and I put this in negative, and it's not really negative. Let's just call it, it's shaded dark rather than shaded light. I think it's about anger. And anger is a strong word. It's not as strong as rage, but it's a pretty burning red word. So you may want to find a synonym for that. I'm not somebody who gets angry very much, but I do feel frustration and irritation and just kind of, that's just annoyance. So you can pick your synonym around anger that feels true to your emotional state. But I'm like, what actually drives you a bit nuts? What actually makes you just irritated? And I'll just take a quick sip of tea. Yeah, there's a whole lot of people wanting to know about the sex therapist. There were, I'll just say this, in her therapy room, there were a lot of whips. And I think she does amazing work. And actually, it was pretty. Not now. It's too interesting a story. I need a cocktail in my hand, not herbal tea. So for me, frustration. One of the things that was a generative for me was realizing how pissed off I was at how coaching was being taught in organizations. I didn't love how coaching was being taught in general to people, but I wouldn't have said that I was angry or frustrated about it. I was just underwhelmed by my experience of being taught coaching a lot of the time. But when I saw people going into organizations and trying to teach coaching and taking the same underwhelming training that they were using for individuals and just trying to make it fit for organizations without any real understanding of the busyness and the hardness of a manager or a leader's job, that really got me frustrated. That just really got me like, I'm annoyed by that. And that was the start of Box of Crayons, and that was certainly the era of Box of Crayons having a focus around making coaching unweird for everyday managers and leaders. And it was the start of the coaching habit, and it was the start of a bunch of you learning about me because of that anger going, actually, this is unacceptable. This is just irritating for me. So one of the places to look at one of your inner feelings is anger. The second one, which I think is a more, let's call it light rather than dark, rather than positive and negative, which are loaded words. I'm using the word hunger for this. And again, you can choose to use your own word around this, but it's like, what do you lust after? What do you seek? What pulls you forward? What gets you going? What makes you rub your hands? What makes you what heightens your appetite or kind of what stimulates your appetite? What kind of feels really juicy for you around this? And if I'm thinking about the hunger that I've got, this idea of helping I'll tell you what it is for me. It's interesting, at MBS.works, we've been thinking about how we talk about what we do and what promise we make to the world. And we've played around with it. It's like positioning, branding. And I realized that something that thrills me is giving confidence to people. Being able to say, I think you can do this. I think that's one of my superpowers, is actually going, look, I'm good at giving people confidence. And I would put that in that top bucket for me, which is around one of the things that is a feeling for me is that sort of the joy I get. And that's a strong word. I don't use that very often, which is like, what's the joy I get around giving people confidence around that? So I can see them kind of be brave enough to take the next step, to try the thing, to trust themselves. That's what lights it up for me. So that's the inner nudges. I'm going to give you a quote. I realize it doesn't actually fit very well, but I've written the slide out. So I'm just going to give it to you anyway, because it might be helpful another time. Where your fear is, there is your task. And maybe this is helpful. Maybe this is the meta feeling that sometimes lurks behind hunger and behind anger, which is I feel those things and yet I'm afraid to act on them. I'm afraid to respond to them. I'm afraid to acknowledge them. So maybe there's something powerful here for you. It feels helpful. It just doesn't quite flow in terms of the teaching that I was doing. All right. Inner, we've done that. You filled out your quadrant around that. Here's what I think is helpful for the outside nudges, is to look and notice where something is broken. Where you say, you know what, this just isn't right. It just isn't working. And you'll notice that often a dialogue already starts happening here between the outside stimulus, the outside nudge, the thing that catches your attention, and actually the inner feelings that it starts to generate around that. But what's broken? You know, there's what do they call it? A cognitive bias, which is when you care about something, you notice it more often. If you're thinking, the example that's always given is if you're thinking of buying a new car, let's call it a red Mazda, you start noticing red Mazdas everywhere you go because you're attuned to start noticing the things that you want to keep noticing. And there's something about what do you notice that's broken. So I notice inefficiencies in systems. I don't know why I noticed this, but I just flew back from England 2 days ago. I had a lovely week in England, had a month in Australia before that. And there was this person putting through the bags through the x-rays thing, and it was just a disaster. And I don't want to go into details about how they were getting it all wrong, but it just meant there was a whole bunch of people clustered at one end and a whole bunch of people clustered at another end. And I was like, it wouldn't be that hard to sort that system out. And that's a weird example of me going, look, that's broken, and I'm noticing it. And it's not triggering a lot of feelings around it. It's mild irritation, perhaps, but I'm drawn to see what's broken in the world. And then the fourth and final thing for the outside nudges is the word I'm using is wave. And again, with all of these words, it's like these are just starter words. You can pick your own words around these if there's better synonyms that are more resonant for you. But for me, when I think of a wave, I think of swimming in the ocean in Australia, honestly, and body surfing. You see the wave, you're like, that's a wave I want to catch. And you position yourself, and when the wave's a bit out, you start swimming madly. And if you're lucky, you catch the crest of the wave, and it takes you up, and then down the face of the wave, and it sweeps you into the shore. You stand up celebrating. It's like, I caught the wave. I can't stand up on a surfboard, but I love a body surf. So for me, this is that thing that you're like, what are you noticing that you want to be part of? That thing that is pulling you forward, that movement, that kind of connection around that. Is there something that is just looks like it would be fun and enlivening? Now, when you're trying to figure out your next big thing, what I notice is I'm actually often, once I've started to notice what's happening in those four quadrants, and there's stuff in all four of those quadrants for me and perhaps for you as well, it's like, what's the combination there that might work for you? The I plus the O. What's the combination? And what's nice about this model is you can start making up combinations. You can actually start making up things where you're like, what if I added this plus this? What if it's this frustration about this system plus the excitement about that wave? Is there something there that gives me a clue as to what this is all about? So you actually start working that combination. What I'm thinking about is wrong, maybe not broken. Yeah, so I would I thank you, Philippe, for that. For me, I would, when I see that comment, Philippe, I'm like, you know what? It's like broken in a this breaks what I think is right in the world. It's not working in the kind of smaller sense as a system. It's just not working about having that in the world right now. So let me ask you this. I've got a few more things I want to teach you, but what's already been useful for you in this session so far? What's been useful or what's landed for you? I'd be curious to know what's felt helpful so far. I love preparing for these. These are all bespoke webinars. I'm like a posh British tailor. I'm making this just for you today. And so often I'm figuring this stuff out for myself. So coming up with this model and understanding the inner drive and the outer drive and how they can dance and play together, that actually felt helpful for me. The I and the O for Ed, confirmation about what I'm thinking about. So maybe you're a bit like Deb, where you're like, this is helping me make some choices or see what was already a maybe become a more firm yes. Inspiration to try this on your own. So Julie O'Leary saying, look, inspiration to try this on your own. I hope so. I'm setting you up here to try this stuff. And what I'm going to talk about in just a little bit actually is the How to Begin course and some specials we're offering, particularly to you who are live with me today, which might be a way that you're supported to make progress on this. So I'm going to talk about that and do a little more teaching, and then we'll get into the quick conversation about the How to Begin course, because that's a more structured approach to work through some of this. All right, so and I like seeing what C James is saying, which is it's okay to guess. I love that somebody's picking that up, which is like, and it's not only okay to guess, it's actually just your own. That's all that's left, because all of this is theory. All of this is this could be good. And you're not going to figure this out until you start testing it out. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute as well. But before I talk about the test and what a test might be, Alan Doyle's coming through with an actual wave in his comments. So kudos for you, Alan. I like your use of emoticons. I want to talk about, once you've got a sense of the inner feelings and the outer nudge, you've then got a conversation to be had with yourself around format and focus. Format and focus. Because what I notice is people often just assume that there's a certain way of doing this thing, doing this next big thing. And the context I hear that most often is people telling me that they want to write a book. I think they like telling me that because I've written books. And to anybody who is like, I want to write my first book, I always go, are you sure you want to write a book? Because it is a miserable experience. Somebody once said, writing is easy. You just stare at a blank piece of paper until drops of blood appear on your forehead. And that's true. And most of it, I mean, like, I'm just trying to write it. I'm just finishing off a new book at the moment. It will come out in June next year. And I'm literally on my 7th draft. And I'm going to have to read it again on the weekend. And I'm throwing up a bit in my own mouth at the thought of reading this. And I like this book. And I'm experienced at being a writer. And most books nobody even reads. So when people say I want to write a book, they've already assumed that that's the format that they want to put something into. And I'm like, if you want to influence people or share ideas or tell a story, I love that. But maybe there are some other formats that you can explore. So let me give you the 3 headlines of the kind of the formats that your worthy thing, your next big thing might encompass. One is to make, I call this the 3P model. I first talked about this, I think, in the Coaching Habit book, and I mention it fairly regularly because I found it a very helpful lens to kind of move around and make some choices around. So the starting point is projects. And this is where most people actually start, which is like, what can I do? What can I build? What can I launch? What can I create? What can I dismantle? It's actually a kind of, I'm going to go and get blisters or tired fingers from typing, but it's an act of kind of focused on an external thing that you're contributing to in some way. And once you kind of decide on project as a format, well, then you've got a choice around, well, within that project, within that decision, what's the different formats where I might do something around that? So, so we have a membership site group called The Conspiracy, where people go to work on their worthy goals, their next big thing. It's a kind of 150 people, wonderful supportive community, people making progress on the stuff they want to make progress on. And one of my favorite people in there had a son who died of a drug overdose and was homeless. And she has for years wanted to honor that son and didn't know how to do it. And with this whole idea of next big thing, worthy goal, she actually set up a shelter that would support other men in that situation in honor of her son. And not only is that just a brilliant story, and I couldn't be prouder of her, but what I love about that is it's a she had choices. It's like, how do I honor my son? How do I create a legacy for my son? And she could have done all sorts of different things around that. She could have held an annual event. She could have set up a scholarship in his name, fundraised around that. But she actually organized a shelter to be built. And that's what I mean by deciding on your format. And the first one of the 3 Ps is projects. The second of the 3 Ps is people. And projects always involve people, but sometimes actually the place to start is with people and go, my main project, my main next big thing is to figure out a different way of being with another person or another group of people. Sometimes your next big thing is like how I am as a parent, or how I am as a child, or how am I as a wife or a husband or a spouse or partner. Sometimes it's who am I really as a team member, and what are my relationships with the people that I'm working with. I work in an organization. My goal is to improve my relationship with my boss or my colleague or a certain person on my team. That's where I'm putting my time and effort. So what I'm saying is your next big thing doesn't have to be I'm going to scale a mountain or start a homeless shelter or write a book. It can be I'm going to elevate a relationship that is important to me in my life. And, writing a book is hard. Changing the quality of a relationship. Give me a book anytime. Maybe that's why I spend my time writing books. It's like I get to avoid having awkward conversations about relationships. But that's the second of the 3 Ps, which is like projects and people. And then the third of the 3 Ps is patterns. And this is in some ways the most self-reflective. Maybe this is the deepest work of all, which is like, who am I? And how do I change who I am now so that I can truly become who I want to be? In How to Begin and in The Conspiracy and other places, that we have this conversation all the time around how do you recognize who you are now, present you, and how do you put that aside so you can step into future you? We call it you plus versus you 2.0. I think that's the right metaphor. Another way of thinking about it is a metaphor I use is, sometimes tinkering with who you are now is like downloading an app on the phone. It's like, if it's a good app, then you get a little bit better, faster, more efficient, wiser. But sometimes your phone needs a new operating system, and that feels more like future you. That's more like you 2.0. And sometimes the next big thing isn't about a project and isn't about a relationship. It's just about you. And how are you showing up, and what's the work you need to do to actually become the person that you want to be? I will say this. There's a connection between these formats and these foci that we're talking about right now, is that all of them are ongoing. All of them require work. And I saw a quote from Kevin Kelly. You might know Kevin Kelly. He's written, what is the book he wrote? Technium, which I thought was fantastic. It's about the 12 future technologies. And he's a founding editor of Wired magazine. His website is kk.org, and I love his stuff. And he says, look, to make something great, just redo it, redo it, redo it. And I love this because I'm trying to write this book at the moment. The book is called How to Work with Almost Anyone. It's about how do you strengthen the working relationships that you have so you build the best possible relationship with the people you work with. And this idea of drafting, redrafting, and redrafting is very real for me right now. But when you choose a format, you've got that I and O quadrant, the 4 quadrants, inner and outer, and light and dark as the drivers there. But once you understand the dynamic that feels strongest for you, it's like I'm frustrated by this and I'm excited by that, or I love this and I'm kind of need to sort this out. Then you're like, so what's my contribution for that? And it always takes work. It always takes kind of repetitive showing up and actually getting things done. But that's after you've made your choice. And I just want to remind you that the key takeaway from this is at a certain point, you've got to make your best guess. Whether you feel you're not really the person to do that, make your best guess. When you think I've got too many choices to choose from, make your best guess. When you're thinking I don't have time for this, make your best guess. It's actually having the courage and faith, I guess, to actually to commit and to make your best guess. So that's a quick little piece of teaching about the format, the 3P model. What, if anything, landed about that? What felt helpful? Love it. I'm like seeing what Mick Copley's saying. The patterns is what I've been focusing on for the last year. That's the self stuff. And it's changed my life. Brilliant. Mick, I'm thrilled for you. Now focusing on music as my next project. So you can see how your next big things can change. It's like, I've done this. Now what? What's the next thing? And Emily's just saying she likes that the next big thing can be yourself. That's great. Malcolm, to start, make your best guess and start. Yeah, I'm pretty big on that. I'm like, I want to get you going on this. It's not, it making me sad will be overstating it, but it would be a waste of human potential to know that there are 2,000 people on this webinar who are hungry for something, and not as many as could made the choice to actually get started on something. So let's say you're like, okay, Michael, damn you, I'm going to make my best guess and have a go at this. One of the anxieties we have is, what if it all goes wrong? And it might, because this is a step into the unknown. So I'm all for going, so how do you make a test? How do you make a test? I'm responding to some of the comments. Monica's saying, would it be too much to do all 3 simultaneously? Monica, I think every worthy goal, which is the language we use around your next big thing in the conspiracy, every worthy goal often has a combination of all 3 of those. You're working on something, it always involves other people, and it always involves you. And I would say making a singular choice about this is the primary focus of this is best. Because honestly, you've got space for one big thing, not 7 big things. That's there's only so much capacity you have. And part of why I keep saying make your best guess, is to force choice. Because I saw Gary Vee saying this the other day, going, I've got too many things and it's too hard to choose, I think he said it was a cowardice. That feels strong. And he's a kind of gentler kind of guy these days. But he was certainly saying it's a way of opting out of making the hard choice. So how do you do the test? Or it's another way of thinking about it. It's you versus reality, or your next big thing versus reality. So how do you actually try this out? Because what doesn't work is you just constantly thinking about it, or talking about it, or mulling it over, or writing it down in your journal every day. You've got to actually engage in reality and go, how good an idea is this? Is it actually helpful to the world? Am I actually excited about it? Does it actually speak to who I want to be and who I want to become? And I wish I could give you a really easy formula for this, but this is the best I've got, which is like, you want to test it fully, but not fully. See, I mean, the truth is, I just want to be a stand-up comedian, and some of these quotes, jokes. That's why I'm not a stand-up comedian, because there's nobody laughing here. But Justin's saying cue laugh track. So thank you, Justin. I appreciate you saying. I didn't know you were going to do that. Fully but not full-y, which is like you got to get into it. You got to give it a fair test, but you want to be aware of what's at risk. And I think when you're testing something, there are three things that are at risk. There's the time that you're spending on it. There's money that might be involved in building something or writing something or just investment. And then there's your own status. Exactly. How will this, who am I and how am I seen in the world, and what might failure bring to that sense of reputation and of status? And the question that I think can be really helpful when you actually figure out what testing you want to do is to ask yourself, what's really at risk? And I think, if anything, that's one of the things that I've really got good at in terms of figuring out my own worthy goal and my own kind of next big thing, is I keep asking myself, what's at risk? Because I've got a certain amount of money that I'm willing to lose when I try stuff out. I've taken my best guess. It's my best guess. So I'm willing to spend time on it. So I'm willing for that time to be spent and then lost. And then I turned out that, that great quote, I used to worry what people thought of me. And then I realized nobody thought of me. I'm like, I don't have that much status or reputation to lose. So, I'm happy to kind of screw up and look like a fool or just be disappointed in myself. So I've got really good at going, I really know what's at risk and I'm willing to try it out. Here's my recommendation on what a good test can look like in terms of time. What I've learned and what we've learned at the Conspiracy is that giving it a good 6-week shot is actually pretty great. And like, what does a fully committed test for 6 weeks look like? And in fact, in the Conspiracy, which runs on 6-week cycles, we call them chapters. We're on a 6-week cycle, then we take a 2-week break and we kind of regather ourselves. Then you take your best guess on the next thing to work on and when your worthy goal, and you do it for 6 weeks. And the reason we do it in a 6-week cycle is that in 6 weeks, you can make a lot of progress. And in 6 weeks, if it's the wrong thing, that is not a huge opportunity cost. It's only 6 weeks. So in the Conspiracy, we have people who, in their first chapters or their first kind of processes, they're like, I'm here to figure out what my worthy goal is. I haven't arrived with it. I'm here to figure that out. I was talking to a friend of mine who's part of the Conspiracy, and he's like, that's it. I've got a short list of 3, and I'm working with my support group to actually really test all 3 to figure out which ones might be best for me. So we're close to the end of the teaching piece, but I'm going to spend 7 minutes, let's say 7 minutes, talking about the How to Begin course. And I'm going to offer you 2 bonuses that are only available to all of you who are live with me now, plus 5 or 6 other bonuses that are part of the course as well, but 2 bonuses that are unique to just this experience now. But before I get into the teaching, before we go there, sorry, Justin, I just want to ask this one thing. What's the one thing that you are taking away from this so far? Like, you can only remember so much. I know I've delivered amazing quality in the last 40 minutes, but tell me what's really landed for you. What's the one thing you definitely want to remember from this? Best guess, risk it, do it, best guess. And Natalie Dore, I saw your name the other day in the Center for Creative Leadership training course that a friend of mine was taking. I choose to, be courageous and start. HARS, the 6 weeks concept, the nudges, Oscar, the 3 Ps. That's why I love asking this question, because everybody takes out different things. That's one part of the reason this question is so powerful, is that what you think is most useful is not always what's most useful. It's always great to ask what was most helpful, what was most useful, what really landed, what's the one thing. It's one of my favorite coaching questions. So there's a lot of people saying it's just about starting. It's just about taking my best guess. And if you're actually asking yourself where to begin, well, then I'm going to tell you, I think it's about how to begin. And in the How to Begin book, we talk about the next big thing as about setting your worthy goal. And I want to talk to you about the How to Begin course that we have, talk about the bonuses. And I'm going to ask Ainsley and Justin to pull up the slides for me now. We're going to talk about this. So the How to Begin course, it's an opportunity to claim ambition for yourself and the world, which we talked about, get going on the work that matters. And also, it's not up here, unlock your greatness. Now, this is a $97 course. And I'm telling you that up front so you know that there's no sticker shock. It's not a super expensive course. It's just a really good value course. And I want to talk to you about what's in the course. So, Angel, if we can go to the next slide. There we go. There's the $97 popping up. So, look at that. I'm even wearing the same shirt. There I'm holding my book. And I wrote this because I mean, I'm just going to repeat myself, what you've already heard me talk about, which is like, I just wanted to, A, help people unlock their greatness. B, help people like you who are like, I want to do the next big thing. I just don't know where to get going on it, how to get started on it. And I want to make the world a bit better. So I had this three-peat reason for doing that. And the book has been a big success. It's taken off. We've got hundreds of reviews on Amazon. And there are 3 sections to the book. There we go. First section is around how do you set a worthy goal. Second is around how do you commit to the worthy goal. And the third is around how do you cross the threshold. And what we've done in the course is we've moved that so that if you need more than just the book, then I'm going to give you, I think there's like 30 videos in the book, plus worksheets and the like, where we work through each of the 3 sections to get you to be really clear about what your worthy goal is. So you're testing the inner and the outer. You're trying to find the right combination between thrilling, important, and daunting. I'm teaching you different ways of drafting a worthy goal so you can really get it. It can really land for you. But once you've drafted it, you've actually got to say, is it a yes or is it a no? And if it's a yes, what must I say no to make the yes real and not just one of those half-assed commitments that we've all made in our time? And then once you get started and you cross the threshold, how do you travel so that you keep making progress? And all of these are the 3 key headlines from the course. Now, in the course, you will get a range of different things. You get, I just need to move my camera so I can actually read this. Here you go. It's going to, there we go. Lifetime access to the course and the upgrades. There's 37 videos, 37 short teaching videos, summaries and transcripts. I filmed them in Canberra in Australia. We had a great TV crew. We had 3 cameras, so it's like, it's fancy production values. There are worksheets on every step. And honestly, I love the community of students that are there. They're asking questions, supporting each other. It's self-directed. You do this at your own pace, but there's a strong group of students and they're supporting you and cheering you on. Next slide, please, Ainsley. So, bonuses. I'm so excited to tell you this. We've never done this before. So you can sign up now at mbs.work/live. If you sign up in the next 17 minutes or 16 and a half minutes, we've got 2 big bonuses for you. One is I'm going to personally sign a bunch of books to you, take them to my local post office, and send them to you. There is the End Malaria book. You can't even buy this anymore. I created this with Seth Godin 10 years ago. It's got 60 articles from people around how do you do more great work? How do you do work that has impact and meaning? I'm going to send you my 3 latest books, How to Begin, The Coaching Habit, and The Advice Trap, personalized and signed. I'm going to send you Presentation Genius, 108 cards on how to design amazing training, get stronger presenting, get stronger at running meetings. And I'm even going to send you some bonus things that are in envelopes that are a surprise. So if you buy the course now or before the top of the hour, you'll be in the draw to get all of that. It's just one of those packages going out because I literally only have 10 End Malaria books left in my entire collection. And if you're watching this as a recording, look, I'm sorry. Thank you for watching it as a recording. There's a bunch of other bonuses that are coming if you get buy the course, but this is just for the people who were live. This bonus, and then the next bonus, which you can decide whether this is more valuable or less value, but it is 30 minutes conversation with me about anything you want. I will coach you. I will teach you. I will talk to you about book writing or book marketing. I could talk to you about branding. I could talk to you about favorite cocktails and share some of my favorite recipes. We can just natter. Stephanie is saying you want to send this to Germany. These books I will send anywhere in the world. If your name is drawn, I'm just going to eat the expensive postage and we'll send them anywhere in the world. So you can globally. I saw people from Brisbane. So if you're coming from Brizzy, you're in it as well. But this might be even more attractive for people. Look, I do not coach anybody. Well, I do. I coach people in the conspiracy once a month. I coach people in the conspiracy. I coach occasionally famous people. Some of you will have heard me coaching Brene Brown on her podcast, which is thrilling and terrifying at the time. But there we go, in the arena coaching. Private time with MBS, priceless. And it literally is priceless because I don't charge anybody for coaching. I don't have any clients that I want to have a commercial relationship with. It's only people who I really want to support and encourage. So it is literally priceless. Oh, and Elizabeth is like, you realize that 30 minutes talking is not comedy or teaching, it's actually relationships. I will tell you where I buy my shirts. I'll tell you anything. Open kimono. So that's a bonus, but only if you buy now. Only if you buy before, in the next 13 minutes, so the top of the hour. And I'm going to keep talking till the top of the hour just to kind of answer questions and encourage you. But that's the bonus. But if you don't buy before the top of the hour, and that's fine, there are some additional bonuses as well. So we'll take you through there. So as well as the 37 lessons, all right, there's the timer, just so you know. All right, Justin, we can put that down. Let's come back to the slides. I went through the How to Begin process with 8 different people, 8 very different next big things, worthy goals. And we just walked through the process step by step. So you see me live facilitate people. Some are 45 minutes, some are an hour and a half. There's a whole bonus of additional teaching. So if you're not sure how the process works, watch me work the process with 8 different people. So that's the first of, I think, 6 bonuses that come with this. The second is, you've heard me talk about the conspiracy a few times. You're only eligible for an invitation to the conspiracy if you've taken the How to Begin course. You need to know this language around thrilling, important, and daunting, and worthy goals, and a bunch of other stuff. So by signing up to be a part of the How to Begin course, you'll get an invitation to the conspiracy. We only open the doors 3 times a year. There's another one coming up, I think, in December. So you'd actually be eligible for that. So you'd be actually able to start the new year as part of the conspiracy if you are looking for a community of other brilliant people working on stuff that matters to them and supporting and encouraging people around that. The third bonus is, drum roll please. There we go. There it is. Oh yeah, so we've got 2 specific new trainings that I've shot in the last 3 months. One is a way of managing the overwhelm of tackling a worthy goal, because we just noticed that this is something that people will come to, which is like, I am so ready to take on a worthy goal, to find my next big thing, and I'm overwhelmed by the thought of it. I'm overwhelmed by my life. So we talk about some specific ways of actually thinking about and managing overwhelm. And connected to that, this is bonus 4, is another training, which is around how do you step into the next best version of yourself. You've heard me say a few times, when you take on a worthy goal, it's unlocking you 2.0, unlocking your future self. And as with anything like this, there's resistance to that. And it's kind of this way, it feeds itself. You do your worthy goal, it unlocks the greatness, unlock your greatness, you can do your worthy goal. But this is a very practical session to kind of go, here's how you have the courage to become future you, and what you need to say no to and what you need to say yes to around that. That's the 4th bonus. Let me tell you about the 5th bonus. An intimate and virtual event with me on December 5th. This is only for people who buy MBS, the How to Begin course right now. It's so intimate. It's so good. I don't even know what I'm talking about yet. But it's going to involve 2 things. It's going to involve some teaching from me. So I'm going to find the next best thing for me to teach you. And it's going to involve some coaching. So you've heard how rare it is for me to do coaching. Well, in these teachings, as part of the atelier is a monthly session we have within the conspiracy. 1 month I do some teaching. Another month I will coach 2 of the conspirators. We'll ask for volunteers. People can put up their hand if they'd like to be coached by me. And then we do some live coaching. You're in the hot seat with me. So I think the woman there I'm coaching, we're going to say that she looks happy and not terrified. So, oh, look, there's Michelle. Brilliant. You've been a member. Love the conspiracy. Been a member since the beginning. Thank you for that. That's a very nice shout out, Michelle. I appreciate that. Just let me check my notes. I want to make sure I'm getting this right. Oh, yeah. So how much does this cost? Yeah, see, in our team, we're always a little awkward about the pricing piece. It's like, how much is this? And this is what they call anchoring in marketing, where I name a high price. But, we actually added it up and I was like, it should be $1 trillion because it involves priceless coaching with me. But it's none of those prices. It's not $999 or $497. It is $97. And I'll tell you why we chose $97. One of our core values at MBS.works is around generosity. It's like, be generous and know your boundaries. We always do these kind of combined values. And we found $97 is enough for people to feel their skin in the game that they will do the course. I don't want it to be cheap, so you kind of like, I bought it and whatever, it's only $20. I'm not actually going to get it done. We want people to feel that this is an investment, and we want to make it accessible to as many people as possible. And we've experimented over time, and we found that $97 is the perfect number around both generosity and accessibility for 30 lessons, 37 lessons plus eight demos plus all the other bonuses. And there's enough of a commitment and there's enough accessibility around that. So that's why we're pricing at $97. Now, we've got an additional bonus, and this is for people who buy by November the 18th, which is a money-back guarantee. If you've done the whole course over 30 days and you feel like you haven't got at least a $97 worth of value, we'll email us and we'll just give you a full refund. Now, why limit this to being buy before November the 18th? Because this course is really powerful when a bunch of people move through it together. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to nudge you to buy it in the next week or so that a group of people move through this together, encouraging each other, sharing stories, being in it together. And I want this wave, I like waves, wave of people moving through this. So we're offering the money back 100% guaranteed if you sign up within the next week. So if you're watching the recording, this is good for you. If you're like, I don't want to buy it right now, because we've got 6 minutes left to get those two bonuses of the books or the coaching. But I might think about it over the next week. That's great. And you get access to this as well. I've got this quote I want to read out for you. When I ran one of these before, somebody called Chris, actually I know Chris, he says, "This is ridiculously underpriced, Lisa. Lisa," he's talking to somebody on the course. "Lisa, if you buy it, complete it, and don't see 1,000% return, I'll personally pay for the course for you." So I don't know whether Lisa bought it and she didn't then actually, and she finished it. So Chris didn't have to pay for the course for her, but I thought that was a nice enthusiasm. Just going to turn my phone off. That's my mum. See how important this is? I'm putting you in front of my mum calling from Australia. So there we go. There's the bonuses. 30-day guarantee, 1-to-1 30-minute chat with me. It can be coaching, it can be conversation, it can be teaching, whatever works for you. I hope you choose to do this. This is a really good course. There's so many people here who feel like they're hungry to get going on something that matters. And I think this course might be a really good investment, a really good support. And maybe we'll actually see you in the conspiracy as well. There's the additional bonuses. This is just a summary. When we ask people before this, we asked people who signed up for this, what are you hoping for? If you get clear on your next big thing, what would you want? Like, I've overcome years of procrastination, committed to staying true to myself, dialed in, unafraid, exhilarated, and connected. All this is great. And what's lovely is that we've actually got testimonials from people who've done the course that actually say things like that. So we'll just share one or two of these. Okay, these are more things that people were hoping for. And there we go. A couple of lovely testimonials. I'll just move my camera. opened doors for me, didn't know existed, went from being hesitant to being stuck. My mum is also, it's a miracle my mum calls me. You know, even mum is calling to buy. Thank you, Justin. Mum, send her money now. We will bill you. So nice testimonials from people who've taken it. And actually, there's been a few conspirators and how to begin people who've been on the thing saying nice things in the chat as well. So this is absolutely MTB Solutions. Signed up, ready to get started. Thank you. You might want to take the call. I've got 4 minutes before I can take the call because I'm going to stay on here before you in 4 minutes. I'm so sorry about this phone. I don't even know how to turn it off. It's a new phone. It's embarrassing. And that, I think, is the last of the slides. So thanks, Dale. I appreciate the encouragement. I'm blushing a bit. I'm a bit embarrassed. My mum's calling me. No, I'm embarrassed that the phone's ringing. I love that my mum's calling me. Look, I've got 3 minutes left. I'm going to keep talking for another 3 minutes. Just so you know that when the timer ticks down, what have we got, Justin? We've got 3 minutes and 35 seconds left. mbs.works/live is the URL for that. I think I've probably got time for 2 questions. So if you've got a question you want to ask me about anything, you can throw it in the comments and I'll grab one of the first things that comes up. Natalie, I'm going to call mum back in literally 5 minutes after we've done a quick debrief. Everybody's encouraging my mum. I love that. Thank you. I will tell her that she is loved. She is a great woman. I'm lucky to have her as my mother. I've had 2 pretty outstanding parents in my life, and boy. And so, of course, the question I get is from Parag, which is like, how about the whips? Natalie, you bought the course months ago. No bonus. I'm going to have to ask the team to get back to you on that. I'm not quite sure what our standard is on that. All right, 2 minutes to tell you the story of the sex therapist. So I'm on this quest to try and get head and heart integrated. And I'm at a dinner party. It's a terrible dinner party. But I heard the host make a comment, which is like, oh, I'm seeing my therapist. And she's helping me kind of get out of my head and more into my body. And I'm like, that's exactly what I'm trying to do as well. So I asked her for a referral. She said, sure, here's a name, here's a number. I called her up, left a message. She called me back and said, let's have an intake conversation to see if I'm right for you. I'm like, great. And she said, the first thing you should know about me is I'm not a therapist. I'm like, well, that's confusing. She's like, did you say sexologist or a sex therapist? It was one of those two. And what went through my head is like, there's nothing I want less in this world is to talk to anybody about my sex life. No, thank you. But you know what? I really was intrigued by how uncomfortable that made me feel. And knowing that her work is so often around helping people with body stuff, I was like, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. So I went and I did 4 sessions before COVID got in the way. And it was fantastic. It was awkward being in her room because it is the room of a sex therapist. There's a lot of stuff around, which we didn't need to use in my particular session. But she got me really connected to where I hold onto things and how tight my throat was around some emotions and some feelings. And we were just on the cusp of exploring what it would mean to be more connected to anger as a possible way of opening up other avenues. So it was really interesting. It was really intriguing, but I was taken aback the first time I walked into the office with the whips. All right, it is. We've got 45 seconds left. Teresa Han Campbell. I'm Irish. The Irish mum. You'll be grand. Thank you. Look, thank you so much for being here. I know we went over the 50 minutes, but I wanted to really tell you about this course because I love it, and I hope I'll see you there. I know I can see a bunch of people who have signed up already, so I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for your generosity, as my mum called as well. You've got 15 seconds to jump on, maybe get the books, maybe get the bonus coaching with me. Your name will be in the draw for the running for that. And I would love to meet you and talk to you. Thanks for being here today. See you next time. Bye, everybody.